Hey everyone, Rash Al Ghul here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering the DC animated movie, Son of Batman.
Yes, the first podcast of our superhero month.
Yes!
Yes. This movie was the first in the rebooted DC animated universe back in 2014.
Yeah, a while ago now.
Yeah. Now when Deathstroke defeats Rash Al Ghul and aims to take over the League of Assassins, Talia travels to Gotham to leave her son Damian in the protective hands of his daddy, Batman.
What was that?
So it was revealed to be Damian's father.
Yes. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, notification updates on future podcasts, and we'll pause videos.
Absolutely. We've seen this movie multiple times. We watched it again for this podcast and literally have forgotten just how great this particular DC animated movie is.
And it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't talk about it because this was when they started to make a little anime extended universe like the animated series. And it seems like, one thing we did notice is vastly different is that they were a little heavy on the violence this time. But these films is when they really were beginning to be more quote-unquote grittier, edgier, darker, so it appeals to adults. But adults were watching it anyway.
Right.
And a lot of people really could not stand Damian in the beginning. He got fans later, but considering his attitude in this film and in some of the earlier comics, he was not really liked at all in the beginning, like when they first had this character out. And it's unfortunate because once we learned that he was based off of Artemis Fowl, then it's like, okay, well that excuses everything he does.
But in all honesty, you have to, in full disclosure, we loved this movie before that.
Exactly.
The 2 times we saw it before.
That's right.
I had no problem with Damian Wayne. I understood the cockiness because of whom he was reared by.
Right.
Then you couple that with who his daddy is,
right,
and his mama is, and it was no other way that this kid could be.
Right. We're expecting him to be Bart Simpson or something.
Right. He's confident and assured and well trained and capable and fearless, and you almost forget he's a kid, and he almost forgets he's a kid. And what I really like about this movie is that, unlike in some of the comic books where it takes a while to get to that, and yes, I have read some of the comic books of Damian Wayne, in this movie you quickly get to see that there are parts of him where he does need that parental guidance, and his dad, because his mom, she's got issues, and they're working through them together, and he's used to her being how she was prior to the accident that happened to her, and she had to be brought back in the Lazarus pit. But this is just a fantastic movie that you haven't seen. You need to see it.
Yes.
And forget all the garbage you may read.
Oh yeah, it's old
press
now.
You may get. I don't care how old it is. There's always going to be someone talking garbage.
Ooh,
don't
they did.
listen to it. This is one of the best DC animated movies that they made.
Yes. And it really wasn't a bad start. I mean, we were glad they were introducing new characters into the DC canon, getting people acquainted with them, and some of these movies are the reason why they were in the live action films, or they got into the Arrowverse on the CW, or they said, hey, let's give this one a series, let's give this one a series, let's give this one a movie, put them in the movie, put them in the comic. These movies were the start of that, and that's why, it's important that, you take a look at these movies. Even if you don't care for them individually or as a whole, what have you, at least you have an idea of how they are. And sometimes even though incarnations in here are done better than in recent ones we've seen, or in the comics when they've started to revamp them twice over to fit with people, with new audiences.
I also like how you quickly got into Batman didn't know about Damian.
Yes.
And then, she just brings him in, and when she tells him he's your son, he sees him, he's like, yes, my son. It was so funny. He's
right.
Like, yeah, yeah. He quickly
told
like, yeah, that's my kid.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious,
Yeah. But, again, I like how you see that he needs that fatherly guidance because he's not getting it from Rash Al Ghul because he's a madman.
Right.
So he needs it from him, and within the short confines of this movie, he teaches him the way only Batman can do some things very quickly on how to be a better human being, a better superhero, a better person.
Right.
with the cape on and with the cape off.
Right.
And these are just elements that you no longer see in the DC animated movies.
Right.
So this is like a time past, like a Miyazaki movie,
right,
where this stuff just doesn't happen anymore in their movies.
Right.
And as far as disliking Damian, I don't see how you dislike him. Yeah, he's cocky and so forth. But to me, somehow, before I even knew that he was modeled after Artemis Fowl, I liked the character. I just liked him. And then finding that out after the third time around watching him,
yes,
like, oh my gosh, I can see it. Oh my gosh,
yes,
absolutely.
Because it's like constant. There are constant references to the character within the movie. So if you know the books, then you'll know why he's more so like this. It's not just they wanted to write an aggressively talk back character. It was a shout out to the book character. And you really think about it, before the Disney Plus movie, this was the closest you got to seeing Artemis Fowl on screen. And even better yet, they actually got a child, Stuart Allen, to be the voice of Damian. It wasn't a grown guy pretending to be a kid or a woman pretending to be a kid. It was an actual kid doing a kid's voice. And then as the kid got older, Damian got a little older too. I think he was about 13 or 14 by the end of this little animated universe. So they really kept it down to the detail. How did they get it more accurate than Disney Plus?
One of the highlights of this movie we're going to have to mention, it's a spoiler, but it doesn't matter, is his encounter with Nightwing.
Oh, yes.
And Nightwing was like, I'm his son. And he says, but I'm the blood son. He says, more like bloody son. And then he challenges Nightwing, and they don't animate and let you see the battle.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, you see shots where they've been battling going on, and then he ties up Damian's behind like he's a cattle in a rodeo, and he can't get out, and it's absolutely hilarious to see it. And then you see Nightwing, and he's all sliced up.
Yeah, he's like, can you get this kid? He says he's yours. In like 5 minutes, all I took was 5 minutes. Like, okay, I'm done with him.
And that's one of the fun parts of this movie. And again, what used to make the DC animated movies a joy to watch. You had your action, your suspense, your mystery, your comedic relief. You had lovable characters you knew. They would have some new ones that come in. Of course, your regular DC and Gotham villains. I used to love these movies because they were just like animated theatrical releases that you didn't pay much for. You got to watch at home. Right.
Because now they've kind of gone back to doing these standalone stories where they're just adapting one book and it's a different style, different story each and every time. They've gone back to that now. They're done with this anime universe. But for what it's worth, I really liked a lot of these movies with this, Batman vs. Robin, not just these, but also the Bad Blood. I really liked a lot of these movies in this universe. And, this being the first one, the only thing you really say is that, yeah, it could be a little overly violent at some points, but there was still a lot to enjoy in here. Yeah, it's not a perfect film. The other movies are perfect, but this really fantastic.
I'm sorry, I think it's perfect. I think it's the perfect balance of everything. I think it was the perfect introduction to those who weren't familiar with Damian Wayne from the comics, to meet him in the movie. This is one time we don't agree. I think Son of Batman is one of the best DC animated movies.
Wow, okay.
I do.
And I will say, without spoiling too much, because the movie I don't think is that long. It's about 90 minutes or less, which is like surprising because we felt like it was a little bit longer at points. So for here, I have to say one of the best parts is that for here Damian can fight because he was trained by Rash Al Ghul, so he's got all these different skills and everything. So in here, there's a fight he has with Deathstroke not once but twice, in the beginning and towards the end of the film. And yeah, it can get a little dicey at points, so if you're a bit uncomfortable with that, just a heads up for you. But it was showing how much stronger Damian really is. And yeah, he's a kid, but he stood his ground against a grown man who is a trained assassin, who's a sword master, and he still beat him.
And like Artemis Fowl, he really got on his nerves, and he just wanted to take him out because he couldn't outsmart him. He couldn't beat him. He couldn't maneuver around him. Nothing that he did surprised Damian. He was just like, bring it on. That's all you got. This I figured this out. You can't do this. And it was Artemis Fowl. And he just wanted to take him out.
Right.
And imagine a grown, middle-aged man so angry with how old was he in this
He was
movie?
about 10 or 11.
About a 10-year-old that he wanted to kill him. That is the wonder and funny part of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, forgive me. He's 12, like Artemis.
He's like, he didn't even want to give him a break. He didn't look at him as he was a kid. He did not look at him as a child. He was just like, I'm taking you out.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the highs of the film, the films featuring him when they use him. Because when it got to a few of the later ones, they end up not using him as much towards the end. I'm not sure why, because they had a lot more characters with powers. But for the beginning, when it was just Batman and Damian, there was a lot of points you got to see Damian fight. You see, this is not just talk. It's not saying, oh, he can do these things, but you don't see it. Or
Disney.
Yeah, he is. You just have to take our word for it. But no, he tells you all the stuff he did as a kid. Like he climbed a mountain when he was 4 years old, broke his wrist and kept going. He's been trained all these different martial arts and everything. And then they show it to you like this kid's not playing around.
Right.
He swam across an entire ocean or coast. And they said there's no way he could swim. There's the only way he can get there. And it shows you he swam for miles without a break. So he is not a joke.
Definitely not. If you have seen Son of Batman, let us know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't seen it, I think it's still available to purchase. We own it.
I think so,
that's
yeah.
how we're able to watch it multiple times. But I'm telling you, if you haven't seen it, it's one of the DC animated movies you need to watch, especially since you're not going to get good ones anymore like this. And it's worth the watch. And if you're an Artemis Fowl fan, then definitely this is the movie for you to watch. So you can see what possibly could have been in an animated movie if Artemis Fowl had been made properly.
Yep, this is the closest thing you're going to get right now.
Right.
So be sure to like, subscribe, notification bell to get future podcasts and other pause videos.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for watching our Mask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.